There has been some criticism and question asking for the last while, once it became clear, it was confirmed by Eskom, that they do have a tender out. They're looking for someone to come on board and redesign the logo and come up with a new corporate identity for Eskom. And even with that being the only thing we knew, I suspect a heck of a lot of people were going, "What are you smoking? Why are you spending money on that?" And that opinion will have been, for many people, solidified by the presentation of Eskom's financial results earlier today. A qualified audit, another qualified audit, and a record-breaking 24 billion rand net loss for the year which ended the 31st of March 2023. Jeremy Sampson is about as knowledgeable about brand matters as one gets in this country, MD of Brand Finance Africa, with us now on the phone. Hello, Jeremy.
John, always good to be with you.
Is there any justification for a company rebranding when that company is in the financial pickle that Eskom is at the moment?
John, your timing is perfect. It's trick or treat day. Look what's going on there. It's arguably got the worst reputation in the country. It's one of the most hated brands of the country. Who's making these decisions? You've got a chairman who's been there a matter of, weeks. You've got an acting CEO. And when you actually read the brief, it's confused and it's confusing. Now, what is this? Lipsticks on the lip of a poodle? What is it? Because it's an absolute mess. And then when you read the brief, you see that there's one company, yes, Eskom. They're going to have subsidiaries, or are they divisions, or are they other companies, all of which will have different identities. Well, that's preempting the whole thing already. They've already allocated 5 billion times 4 for the exercise. And then, and this is the clincher, John, you're going to love this. On the Eskom site, the chief executive says, just because there is a tender doesn't mean to say it will result in a contract. Now, I ask you, anyone around the country who's been salivating at doing the identity for them must be looking at that lot and thinking, why should I waste my time?
But let's talk a little bit more about new logos and corporate rebranding generally. I mean, the company for which I have worked for the last 26 years has done that a couple of times. It is something that companies do. Is it kind of automatically necessary that you do have to refresh the image that you present to the world? If generally people perceive you well, does that mean that you shouldn't do it? Does it work when people don't perceive you well and you rebrand yourself? Does that make any difference?
John, in the last couple of years, the two major rebrands, and I use the word rebrand because it's the totality, the visual, the logo is just the tip of the iceberg in my world of branding. The two most recent ones are FNB and MTN. Now, those were both done professionally. There was a recognition that they had to have a revamp, they had to have a refresh of their identity, and refreshes will vary by the industry sector. After you're in petroleum, it might be every 10, 12 years. But if you're in fashion or retail, you might have to do it much more frequently. Now, in the case of FNB, they decided that their logo looked a little bit old-fashioned, so they wanted to zoot it up, as it were. In the case of MTN, they had a complicated logo with lots of different colors and operating in whatever it is, 18 countries around the world. It was costing a fortune to keep that going. In the case of ABSA a couple of years ago, they had an old-fashioned logo. It didn't lend itself to the digital age. So that's one of the reasons they changed that. So there are all sorts of different reasons, but you don't change the look of something when it's still as rubbish as it always was.
Yeah, look, because the plan is to divide Eskom into these separate divisions and have their own boards and then a sort of grand board and fit into this grand new SOE of SOEs. So at some point there will be new names and new stationery will have to be printed. But the number of rands that you mentioned, Jeremy, my jaw, which is having difficulty staying fixed to my teeth, dropped even further to the floor when I heard 20 billion across the 4 subsidiary companies.
Well, exactly. And what is that for? But just to step back, I was involved in meetings with Eskom 15, 20 years ago, talking about splitting it up. It still hasn't happened. They're still talking. And what's that fee going to cover? Eskom employs a lot of people. It has a lot of operations. So there's signage, there's uniforms, and there's all the digital side and the legal side. It's a huge beast at the best of times. And if it's going to be split up into 3 or 4, and then they talk about newcos coming down the line. Well, what the hell? We just don't know. And that's where it's very, very confusing. Now, normally with any organization, you want to sort out the reputation, sort out the brand, make sure the brand is stronger, and then, and only then, do you look at the visual side to sharpen it up, refresh it, or whatever.
As a brand novice, I would think that the best way that Eskom can improve what I understand brand to be is to fix load shedding. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we look at the media, the negative media over what? 1 decade, 2 decades, whatever it is. You go back. It's rather spend the money on sorting out your performance. For any organization, any brand, you want to make sure that you're performing properly, regularly. A brand should have a premium added to it. It should be a loved thing. It should be something that you're loyal to. All these things are against what Eskom is at the moment. Eskom needs to sort itself out. It needs to sort its house out. And the fact of the matter is that it has one major shareholder, and that same shareholder will be the shareholder of all these divisions or companies or subsidiaries or whatever.
I'm springing this question on you because I've only just thought of it now. I read on page 2 of Business Day yesterday, Pravin Gordon saying that airline competitors are scared of South African Airways coming back into the market.
Does that deserve an answer, John? The way you're laughing and I'm laughing, and I'm sure practically all your listeners are laughing, he's delusional. As a lot of the ministers are, they're totally delusional. They're totally out of touch with the reality of business today. None of them has run a tap.
Jeremy Sampson, thank you very much. I must find reasons to talk to you more often, Jeremy. I'm not going to allow Bruce Whitfield to have the monopoly on you as he has over the years. Jeremy, MD of Brand Finance Africa.